Good morning. Good morning. I hope you enjoyed that theme song. I quite like it. Welcome to Ebony Expats News. I want you to get comfortable, come in, grab a pillow, and get ready for a broadcast of heartwarming stories. How are you guys this morning? Happy Wednesday, or this evening for those of you guys watching on the Western Hemisphere. Alrighty, so while we wait for people to come in, let's talk about Spike Lee's new movie release, Da 5 Bloods. As many Black expats, including myself, got to meet him last year at an intimate pre-production party that he hosted at Chiang Mai's Black-owned Entrepreneurship Center. Basically, if this movie isn't on your radar, it's about four African American veterans who returned to Vietnam to find the remains of their fallen squad leader and also the promise of treasure. The movie touches on things like the human nature, but also the lasting impacts of the Vietnam War. I myself flew at 6 a.m. in the morning when I heard that Spike Lee was in Chiang Mai, Thailand. I was living in Bangkok at the time. And I arrived, and that night I attended the pre-production party, got to meet Spike Lee, and it was just a really beautiful time. So it's amazing that now this is going to be on Netflix, and Ebony Expats is going to be hosting a watch party. So make sure to look at the Ebony Expats events page for more details about that, and we'll be watching it together and supporting this really incredible feat by Spike Lee. Okay, our watch party scheduled for June 12th. Alrighty, so if you don't know me, I'm Liana Freeman. I'm your host and political correspondent here at Ebony Expats News. We're here to keep you updated, informed, and empowered through a global network of Black travelers and expats. So I want to welcome you to week 8 of quarantine. I'm not sure that any of us thought that we would make it here, but look at us, we are. Last week's news coming out of Western countries especially was heavy at the very least and heartbreaking at the very most. While we as Black travelers and expats are dealing with the pressure of quarantine abroad, we also feel sometimes that we're bombarded with the news, news like that of Ahmaud Arbery and his unlawful death, and as things like hatred and racism hasn't taken a back seat to coronavirus during this pandemic. If you're from the United States or the UK, you might have also seen reports in your timeline or whatever news source that you choose about higher numbers of death in Black and Brown communities as opposed to their white counterparts. So understandably, the news has become somewhat of a source of agitation. If you're like me, you feel compelled to stay informed, stay updated, so you can make informed decisions. However, it also can feel heavy. So this week at Ebony Expats, we decided to dedicate an entire episode to highlighting human nature and uplifting global news to offset the anxiety that's usually associated with staying informed. So I was quite excited about that. So in this episode, we're going to do 3 things. Number 1, we're going to spend only 1 minute, just 1 minute, bringing you important stories as it pertains to the Black community abroad. And then we're going to move into stories of global generosity and humanity and how people are taking actions and answering calls of action to improve the lives of others. And lastly, we want to check in with our viewers about your experiences with Ebony Expats News and the content you'd like to see. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me get my timer because I promise you only 1 minute of grim news. Alrighty, so here's some global news in 1 minute that you should know. So first of all, the United States continues to struggle with enforcing social distancing measures as infection rates far exceed 70, or the deaths far exceed 70,000 at this point. And it's been especially difficult as the president and local representatives continue to bypass health expertise for individual freedoms. Even though the predicted daily death toll in June will be about 3,000 Americans per day. This map that we have shows those states that are adhering to lockdown procedures and social distancing, And then those states that are in between or are starting to ease lockdown restrictions and the amount of social distancing happening. So, for instance, if you see in the West Coast or in the Far East, though that dark blue symbolizes countries or symbolizes places around the United States that have pretty stringent lockdown measures and people are still social distancing. And the lighter colors represent openings of government and lack of social distancing. So I thought that was a pretty cool graphic. Alrighty, our next story: the hotel industry will be forever changed by COVID-19, as CNN's article "What Will Staying in a Hotel Look Like in the Future" predicts the concierge services will be replaced by self-check-in. Communal spaces like bars, pools, and free breakfasts will probably cease to exist or have heavy restrictions. And the Marriott, the Hilton, and the Anatara have all dedicated to extensive sanitary processes, which they report might manifest themselves in higher hotel fees, higher cleaning fees. And lastly, according to BBC News, as global lockdown measures start to ease, countries that have been celebrated for being able to get coronavirus under control are starting to see a surge in infection cases. Countries like South Korea, Germany, and areas of China. So this kind of makes travel for the rest of 2020 seem even more unlikely. Okay, that's it for our bad news. Let's move into uplifting stories around the world. Okay, our first story comes from Amsterdam, as a new concept of dining has caught the eye of people around the world. The Washington Post reports that the French restaurant Cerise Séparée at Amsterdam's Mediamatic Art Center has decided to take a creative approach to social distancing by allowing people who live together in the same homes to enjoy outdoor dining in greenhouses, as seen here. So the pods put social distance between customers, as well as allow those customers to engage with staff in a way that promotes little contact. The glass pod idea has actually been so successful that this restaurant is booked clearly into next month, which is awesome. All right, artists in Afghanistan are using literary expression to find solace in these uncertain times, as youth are writing and publishing erotic poetry on social media. Although the country has faced some challenges and setbacks during the Taliban era, according to Professor Zuzana Olzeska, love poetry has been one of the most celebrated aspects of Persian poetic tradition. And despite the country's conservative culture, social media has created an avenue for these artists to thrive. President Emeritus Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama have joined together to give a series of graduation speeches for both high school and college students. As social distancing has canceled all graduations around the country and made large gatherings impossible. Obama has gone as far as to call Chicago school district teachers during Teachers Appreciation Week and thank them for everything that they're doing, especially in these times of uncertainty. Speaking of Barack Obama, he also stepped out of the political shadow this week to address the handling of coronavirus by the White House, calling it a chaotic disaster, as the president has remained largely removed from politics since leaving office in 2016. And now we go over to Shanghai, China, as Disney Park has reopened its Disney Park with very, very stringent social distancing standards in place. The park will only allow 30% of its 80,000 person occupancy and will not allow photos with Disney characters to enforce social distancing. According to The Guardians, the tickets to the theme park sold out within a matter of minutes. And this is reported just after Disney took a 91% drop in net earnings in the first quarter of this year. A local group from Missouri, from Unchained Melodies Dog Rescue, have been visiting nursing homes, allowing the elderly, to interact with puppies through glass in an attempt to curb loneliness in the midst of lockdown quarantines. Alrighty, and Game of Thrones actor Michael Corbin has taken a position as a grocery delivery driver for a British supermarket chain and is now delivering groceries in solidarity with essential workers. And our last story is about COVID-19 itself, as countries around the world are seeing progress in the COVID-19 battle, with Tunisia reporting no new cases, Turkey opening much of its economy for business, and New Zealand opening its economy entirely with little restrictions. Even things like bars and cinemas in New Zealand are said to open by May 18th. But social distancing gatherings will only be restricted to only 10 people. Alrighty, that's it for our global news. So now, in this part, we want to hear from you. So we've been doing Ebony Expats News for 7 weeks now, and we're interested in the content that you'd like to see. Our interview with UN Health and Migration Specialist Patrick Dugan is now available on the Ebony Expats page, as well as our interview we did with Trina, and a Black expat stranded in South Korea in the midst of quarantine lockdowns. If you're living abroad, thriving abroad, working abroad, or you happen to be a traveler who's temporarily staying in a country until lockdown measures ease, please let us know. We want to hear about your experiences on Ebony Expats and hopefully have you on the show so we can do an interview, so we can just bring some more light into what Black travelers and expats around the world are experiencing. So if you'd be willing to be interviewed, please just drop a line below in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from and tell us that you'd be willing to be interviewed for our show. Okay, this note is for our US viewers. If your state allows you to vote electronically as opposed to receiving a paper absentee ballot, please email your local county's office about requesting an electronic ballot. So COVID-19 has definitely put a strain on the US Post, and there is a fear that if you receive your absentee ballot, you will not have enough time to send it back and have it counted for our next election, which, as you know, is quite crucial. So if you can request those electronic ballots, do so. I'm from the state of Washington, so I will be voting electronically. I know some states that's not a possibility, but it definitely doesn't hurt to check. Alrighty, so this concludes our episode of Ebony Expats News. Let us know where you're watching from again, and also let us know your reactions, any comments, and have an exceptional day. We will see you this time next week. Thank you for watching.